the night the lights went out at Downing Street. No one knew that Rishi Sunak's decision would change world history when the door knocked. Standing before him wasn't just an activist, it was the conscience of an entire generation. Rome, Italy. A cold Saturday morning in November. The air was crisp, the kind that made your breath visible. The city was waking up, espresso machines humming in corner cafes, street vendors setting up stalls along ancient cobblestone streets. But inside the grand halls of power, a different energy was building, thick with tension. There were only 6 hours left until the opening of the G20 Leaders Summit. 6 hours until the world's most powerful people would gather to discuss the fate of the planet. Hundreds of security guards, diplomats and journalists rushed through marble corridors of the Quirinale Palace like ants carrying the weight of nations. The lights were bright, cameras ready, expectations sky high. This wasn't just another summit. This was the moment when the world would either unite against climate change or continue down the path of empty promises. Rishi Sunak, as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, was attending this summit for the 3rd time or so. He thought he was ready. His speech had been written and rewritten a dozen times, reviewed by experts, polished until every word shone. He had reviewed the climate data, consulted with advisors, memorized key statistics. Everything was lined up perfectly. He felt confident, prepared, in control at 7:45 in the morning while looking in the mirror in his hotel room, adjusting his navy blue tie, running fingers through his hair. His advisor Victoria knocked on the door with urgency. "Prime Minister," she said, her voice tight. "We have a situation, a serious situation." Rishi turned quickly. "What situation? What's happened?" His voice steady, controlled. Victoria held out her tablet, her hand trembling. A breaking news headline was flashing. Greta Thunberg storms G20. Leaders are lying below. It was a photo that would soon be on every front page. Greta Thunberg, her face determined, was walking through Rome's streets with 500 activists' voices rising in a chant. The banner in her hand was written in English and Italian. "Sunak's false promises are killing our children." The words hit him like a punch. Rishi's brow furrowed. "When did this start?" He asked. 2 hours ago. Victoria replied. "They're near the Colosseum. Tens of thousands are joining. Police can't stop them. The press is broadcasting live. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera. Everyone is covering it." Rishi handed back the tablet. There was a strange feeling inside him, not anger, more like exhaustion. The feeling of being crushed under a burden too heavy. "Our climate targets are clear," he said. "We will reduce carbon emissions by 68% by 2030. We have Europe's most ambitious plan." Victoria nodded, but there was hesitation. "Yes, sir, but they don't think it's enough. They say it's all talk, that we're still funding fossil fuels." But the most shocking part hasn't come yet. In the summit hall, everyone had taken their seats. The atmosphere thick with tension. Around the huge oval table sat the leaders of 19 countries. America, China, Russia, India, Brazil, Germany, France, Japan. The world's most powerful people, their flags standing behind them. The first item on the agenda, climate crisis. When the meeting started, everyone used diplomatic language: cooperation, shared responsibility, sustainable future, words flying, but no one was saying anything real. Rishi spoke when his turn came, reading his prepared text. "The United Kingdom reaffirms its commitment to the Paris Agreement. We stand with our partners. Our £40 billion investment for green energy represents the largest commitment in British history. We are closing coal plants, investing in wind and solar. We are leading the way." He paused, looked around, but before he could continue, boom, a tremendous sound came from outside like thunder. The summit hall was windowless, underground, but that sound shook. The walls rattled, water glasses made chandeliers sway like an earthquake. Security guards immediately took action, hands moving to earpieces. One rushed forward, whispered urgently into the US president's ear. The Italian Prime Minister stood up quickly. "Distinguished leaders, we're taking a short break, 10 minutes. Everyone stood up slowly, the spell broken. Rishi looked at Victoria. "What happened?" She was looking at her phone. "The activists, they've blockaded the building. There are 10,000 people. Outside, Greta Thunberg is at the front. She's speaking. It's being broadcast everywhere." Rishi walked to a small observation window. From there, he could see outside. The view was incredible. The street was completely full. A sea of humanity. Banners in every language, flags from every nation, megaphones amplifying voices, people chanting, "No lies, hope exists." Leaders sleep, the world burns. And in the middle, on a platform, stood a 20-year-old girl, hair flying, speaking with a megaphone. Greta Thunberg. This is where everything changed. When Rishi returned, the other leaders were watching television screens. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, all showing the same footage. Greta Thunberg speaking. "Those sitting inside tell you we will save the world." Her voice rang clear and sharp. "But the truth is they're just signing papers, making promises they'll never keep, doing nothing to put out the fire while our planet burns. They sit in comfortable chairs and do nothing." The crowd screamed. "Rishi Sunak!" Greta shouted, pointing at a camera. Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, are you in there? Are you listening? The camera zoomed in. Her eyes were red, but her voice was clear. You say green energy, you say net zero, but at the same time you're giving new oil exploration licenses in the North Sea, opening new coal mines, funding the industries destroying us. Your words are empty, your promises are lies, you are failing us. Rishi's jaw clenched, his hands gripped a chair. On television, the commentator said Thunberg is directly targeting Sunak. Britain's climate policies have come under heavy criticism because the government has postponed green investments, citing economic pressures, inflation, energy security. The question is, how will Sunak respond? Rishi turned off the screen. We're continuing the meeting, he said sharply, but when they returned to the table, the atmosphere had changed. Leaders looked at each other differently, some with sympathy, some with calculation, some with satisfaction, whispering behind hands. No one said anything openly, but the message was clear. Sunak is in trouble. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet, because Greta was about to do something unexpected. 10:30 at night, when Rishi finally returned to his hotel after 8 brutal hours of negotiations, meaningless photo opportunities, carefully worded statements that said nothing, he felt completely drained. The summit had been a disaster, no concrete decisions. Despite all the speeches, all they had was another promise: we will work more. We will continue discussions, the same promises for decades. He showered, let hot water wash away tension, changed into jeans and a white shirt, went onto the balcony. Rome's lights shining, the Colosseum illuminated, the Tiber reflecting the moon. A city eternal, yet even Rome had seen empires crumble when they ignored warnings. His phone rang, unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him press accept. Yes, his voice cautious. Prime Minister Sunak, this is Greta Thunberg. Rishi froze, his heart pounding. Greta's voice was young, but there was steel in it. I need to talk to you alone tonight. Rishi smiled bitterly. Are you seriously calling me this morning? You declared me a liar in front of the world. You called me a failure. Now you want to meet. What do you want, an apology? No, Greta said sharply. I don't apologize. I meant every word, but I need to show you something. Something that if you see it, maybe your mind will change. Rishi paused. Why should I meet you? Because, Greta said, her voice slower, you're also a father. You have children, and when they grow up in 20 years, they're going to look at you and ask, what did you do when the world was burning? What did you do when you had the power to change everything? Rishi's breath caught. He had daughters, Krishna and Anushka, 11 and 13. Their faces flashed through his mind. Where should we meet? He asked. When she said Pantheon Square, midnight. Rishi's heart raced. Midnight 0:15. Pantheon Square was completely empty. Just a few tourists and guards. Rishi came alone, without bodyguards, in civilian clothes, baseball cap and black jacket, in the middle of the square in front of the historic Pantheon. Greta was sitting with a backpack. Rishi approached. I'm here, he said quietly. Greta lifted her head, her face tired. No makeup, no anger, just deep sadness. Thank you, she said, for coming. Rishi sat down. What did you want to show me? Greta opened her bag, took out a tablet, opened the screen. First image, a polar bear family stranded on ice, mother and 2 cubs dying of starvation. Second image, forest fires in Australia, koalas burning trees to ash. Third image, a flood in Bangladesh, a mother carrying her child through water crying. Fourth image, drought in Spain, fields dried, farmers helpless. Greta paused at each image, didn't speak, just let Rishi see. Finally, Rishi turned. I know these, I'm a politician, but what? Greta asked. But is the economy important? But are elections important? But is lobby money important? Rishi was silent. Greta continued. You know, the science is clear. If we don't act now, after 2030, we'll reach a point of no return. But you make promises, then pull back. Rishi sighed. You're 20 years old, Greta. You want to save the world, I understand. But now I'm running a country, 67 million people. The economy is collapsing. Inflation is 11%. People can't pay electricity bills. I can't tell them we're canceling oil licenses. You'll pay more. Greta looked at him. So you're sacrificing our children's future? No, Rishi said, his voice rising. I'm balancing, trying to do both. But you're not succeeding, Greta said quietly. Do you know why? Because you say we'll deal with it later, but later will be too late. Rishi stood up, started pacing, his hands shaking. What do you want me to do? Should I close all the oil companies, collapse the economy? No, Greta said calmly, but when you enter that hall tomorrow, tell the truth. Admit that as leaders you failed, then present a real action plan, not empty promises, concrete steps. Rishi stopped. If I do that, my career ends. The media will tear me apart. My own party will overthrow me. Greta stood up, her face close, tears shining. But what about your daughters when they're 30? What will they think? Will they say my father could have saved the world but chose his career? Wait a minute, because Rishi's answer would be different than expected. Rishi stepped back, sat down, put his head in his hands. Long silence, then trembling, he spoke. You know, Greta, I study economics at Stanford, worked at Goldman Sachs, managed a hedge fund. I was always successful, but now for the first time I feel like I'm truly failing. Greta sat down, listened silently. Because you're right, Rishi continued. I made promises. I said net zero 2050, but we're opening coal mines, giving oil licenses, and every night I think, am I doing enough? And the answer is no. A tear rolled down Greta's eyes. Then why, she asked, why aren't you doing enough? Rishi looked at her. Because I'm afraid if I make wrong decisions, people will suffer, the economy will crash, jobs will be lost, families devastated, and I can't carry that responsibility. But there's a problem, Greta said. If you do nothing, billions will suffer, not just in 10 years but in 50 years too. Rishi raised his head. What do you want me to do? Greta opened the tablet again, showed a different document. Urgent Climate Action Plan 2024. This, Greta said, is a real plan by scientists, not just promises, concrete steps. Exit fossil fuels in 5 years. Transition to renewable energy, green jobs. It's all here. Rishi examined the document. This isn't realistic, he said. Change can't happen this fast, can't it? Greta said. When COVID-19 came, the world shut down in 2 months. Billions moved, people adapted because it was necessary. The climate crisis requires the same urgency, but you leaders don't see it because you don't want to. Rishi was silent, closed the document. If I take this tomorrow, they won't listen. Maybe, Greta said, but at least we'll say, you tried. When Rishi entered the summit hall next morning, no one noticed the file in his hand, but 20 minutes later, the next morning, 9 o'clock, second day of G20 began. Agenda economic cooperation. But Rishi had a different plan in the middle. While America and China argued trade, Rishi raised his hand. I'm sorry, he said. I need to say something. Everyone turned surprised. Rishi stood up, put the file on the table. Distinguished leaders, he said, voice trembling but determined. Last night I spoke with Greta Thunberg. The hall froze. Some leaders raised eyebrows, and she told me something that deeply shook me. We, the 19 leaders, are the most powerful people, but we're also the most failed because we have science. We have solutions, but we're not acting. Prime Minister, this isn't appropriate. No, Rishi said sharply. This is exactly the time. I don't want to lie anymore. I promise the United Kingdom will exit fossil fuels by 2035. Coal, oil, gas, all of it. Rishi Sunak is now 65 years old. A retired politician one day sitting at home. The door knocks. When he opens the door, a 30-year-old woman is standing before him. Her eyes look familiar. Hello, Mr. Sunak, she says. I'm making a documentary about the G20 summit in 2024. Do you remember that summit? Rishi smiles. How could I forget what happened that day? Why did you make such a decision? Rishi looks out the window. Outside, solar panels, wind turbines can be seen. London has become a completely green city. Because, he says slowly, that night someone asked me the right question and I couldn't answer. So I changed. The woman smiles. I understand you. By the way, my name is Krishna. Krishna Sunak. Your daughter. Rishi's eyes fill with tears. Dad, Krishna says softly, I'm proud of you. Rishi is tearing up. He hugs his daughter. They stay like that for a long time. He looks out the window on London's horizon. Hundreds of wind turbines are turning, solar panels are shining, electric buses are passing. Silently, the decision he made in 2024 had changed the world. It hadn't been easy, but it was right. And now, 21 years later, his daughter was telling him she was proud of him. He didn't need anything more. This story isn't just about Rishi Sunak or Greta Thunberg. It's about every single person who has ever faced a choice between what's easy and what's right, between short-term comfort and long-term survival, between personal ambition and collective responsibility. We all face these moments in our lives, maybe not on a global stage, maybe not in front of cameras, but in our own ways, in our own spheres of influence. A manager who must choose between quarterly profits and worker safety. A parent who must teach their children values, even when it's inconvenient. A student who must speak up against injustice, even when everyone else stays silent. A leader who must make an unpopular decision because it's the right thing to do. The question isn't whether you have power. The question is what you do with whatever power you have. And here's the truth that Rishi learned that night in Rome. Power isn't really about controlling others. It's about having the courage to do what's right, even when everything inside you is screaming to take the easy path, even when your career is on the line, even when the people you trust are telling you to wait, to be cautious, to think about the consequences, because sometimes the greatest consequence is doing nothing at all. Greta Thunberg understood this. She was 20 years old with no political position, no wealth, no army, no traditional power. But she had something more valuable. She had moral clarity. She had the courage to speak truth to power. She had the willingness to stand alone if necessary. And because of that, she moved the world not by force but by conscience. Rishi had all the traditional markers of power: the title, the office, the resources, the platform, but for years he had been paralyzed by fear. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of being wrong. And that fear had kept him from being truly powerful. That night when he sat with Greta on those ancient Roman steps, he realized something profound. All the power in the world means nothing if you're too afraid to use it for something that matters, and all the fear in the world can't stop you if you finally decide that some things are more important than your own comfort. So he made a choice, not because it was easy, not because it would benefit him personally, not because he knew it would work out, but because he finally understood what his daughters would ask him someday, and he wanted to be able to look them in the eye 21 years later, when Krishna knocked on her father's door. She wasn't just making a documentary, she was completing a circle. She had grown up watching her father being attacked in the media, watching his career crumble, watching him lose the next election, just as he predicted. But she had also grown up in a world that was slowly healing, a world where leaders around the globe had followed Britain's example, where the catastrophic tipping points had been narrowly avoided, where her generation still had a future worth fighting for. She remembered being 13 years old, sitting in their living room, when her father came home after losing the election. His face was tired but peaceful. He sat down between her and her sister, pulled them close and said something she never forgot. "I lost the election, but I didn't lose what matters most. I can still look at you two and know I did everything I could to give you a future, and that's worth more than any office could ever be." Those words had shaped her. She studied environmental peace amount at Pigsfods, my for love of wades, what yous cry out softefund. The Vertsven to educate, and of your to the babal wathsamouder. Journalism became an advocate for climate action, chose a career dedicated to telling stories about people who made hard choices for the right reasons, and now making this documentary about her father, about that pivotal moment in 2024. She was telling the most important story of all, as they sat together in that London living room in 2045, looking out at a city transformed by clean energy. Krishna asked her father one more question. "Do you have any regrets?" Rishi thought for a long moment, watching the wind turbines spin against the sky. "I regret that I didn't act sooner," he said. "Honestly, I regret all the years I spent afraid. I regret that it took a 20-year-old girl to wake me up. But do I regret the decision I made that day in Rome? No, never. That decision cost me everything and gave me everything at the same time." Krishna nodded, understanding. She turned off her camera. They sat in comfortable silence, father and daughter, watching the sun set over a city that had been reborn. Then Krishna said something that made her father's eyes well up again. "You know, Dad, my whole life people have asked me what it's like being your daughter, being the daughter of the man who sacrificed his career for climate action, and I always tell them the same thing. I tell them that I'm the daughter of a man who loved me enough to protect my future even when it cost him his present. That I'm the daughter of a man who showed me that courage isn't about being unafraid, it's about doing what's right, even when you're terrified. And that I'm the daughter of a man who proved that one person really can change the world if they're willing to pay the price." Rishi couldn't speak. He just held his daughter's hand, the same hand he had held when she was born, when she took her first steps, when she graduated, when she got married. And now, as she told him that despite everything, despite all the criticism and attacks and losses, his life had meant something, his choice had mattered outside the sun, continued to set over London, over a world that was far from perfect, but was healing, over a future that had been saved not by a miracle but by a choice, by courage, by one man who finally decided that some things are more important than fear. This is the lesson of Rishi Sunak's story. Not that he was perfect, not that he didn't make mistakes, not that his solution fixed everything, but that when it mattered most, when the moment came, he chose love over fear, he chose future over present, he chose his children over his career, and in doing so he showed us all what real leadership looks like. So when your moment comes, and it will come when you face your own choice between what's easy and what's right, remember this story. Remember that you don't need to be a prime minister to make a difference. You just need to be brave enough to do what you know is right, even when everything inside you is screaming to play it safe. Remember that the people who change the world are not the ones who never feel fear. They're the ones who feel the fear and act anyway.